If you have always wanted to go abroad to immerse in your target language and really get fluent, but you haven't found the means, the time, nor the energy, I'm here to talk to you in this video about how to create an immersive environment. Just here, sitting on the couch at home, because it is true, you don't actually need to go abroad in order to gain fluency in your target language. These tips that I'm about to share with you have gotten me fluent in not only German, not only Italian, but also just helped me make the language learning process more meaningful, more fun, even when I was by myself at home. The first tip I recommend is actually creating a language bubble. What do I mean by this? According to both your energy and your time limits of the day, you can set aside anywhere from 1 to 3 hours to even just the whole day where you only work on the language, typically via just active recall. And if you have known me for a while, you know that I love to structure my language learning via how high my energy levels may be per day. So I usually schedule all of my high energy activities that do involve a lot of active recall in the mornings, and practicing active recall usually means that you're producing that language via writing and or speaking and being able to develop conversation skills consistently. So for actually doing this the most efficiently, I love to turn to my favorite online language learning platform, italki, which is the sponsor of today's video. In case you're not familiar with italki, italki is a language learning platform that offers one-on-one lessons with native speaking teachers. Now, I know that solo language learning does tend to get lonely. Plus, it is really easy for me to miss out on real conversation practice and the opportunities to improve my listening and my speaking. Now, recently I have been dabbling a little bit in Japanese, so not only can I receive real-time guidance and feedback to speak more even from day one of learning a dabbling language, I can also choose from a really wide range of language experts to find the most flexible rates that also fit my personal budget and schedule. On italki, you pay per lesson. There's no compulsory subscription, but there's also packages for your choice. Now, I really love the platform layout, which is very user-friendly. There is a huge range of languages offered that you can learn. Now, I've used this platform for almost a decade to learn 7+ languages, no matter if I am advanced or just a total beginner dabbling in Japanese, just like in the lesson I had today.
My class is conversation class.
That is formal.
そうです、formal です。すみません。There are two different meanings. The first one is I'm sorry, and also excuse me is also すみません. Thank you so much.
ありがとう。
はい、ありがとう。すごい、ありがとうございます。
I've really witnessed how committed italki is into improving their platform, and this can be seen of adding italkis plus AI tools. italki automatically tracks your progress, including how many lessons you've taken, how much on average you've been speaking during those lessons, as well as noting the vocabulary, expressions, and also grammar notes that your teacher taught you during class. And there is even a 1-month free trial provided on the platform when you do sign up. Now, if you would also like to give building your own language learning bubble a try with italki, you can buy $10 and get $5 for free for your first lesson using my exclusive promo code Adoptee. Make sure to click the link in the description to start your language learning journey today, and also hurry because these discounts are only available to the first 50 users who sign up and purchase their first lessons. Now, after you take your language class, you can definitely go further with your language learning bubble, again, if you have the time and energy for it. Now, because most of your energy was used to actually produce the language during the class, I usually like to now turn towards the notes that I took from the actual class for when I have a little bit less energy. And especially because italki's AI tools took notes for me, I can easily look back and refer to anything I learned in class. And then what I suggest doing is actually making a story audio out of what you learned. So because I am a very big beginner in Japanese, what I'm basically going to create is a role play where I learned some of the greetings, some of the ways to introduce myself, and then also to say goodbye at the end. And then I'll be able to put it into an app that will be able to read the text back for me, since I am definitely a beginner and I don't have a really good pronunciation of Japanese just yet. I love using reverso context for this, deep L, or forvo. However, if you are practicing your language bubble with a more intermediate or advanced language, instead of a skit, you can write a story that includes all of your elements that you learned during class, hit record on any sort of recording app that you have on your phone, and read what you have, stop record, and then you have your perfect little audio to just listen to throughout the day. Alternatively, if you want, at the end of any class, you can always ask your teacher to read the most essential notes and phrases, vocabulary, and have that as well as just a story audio that you can listen back. Now, how else can we create an immersive environment, especially by using more input and output? So usually with lower energy, once I already have my story audio done, as I am listening, I will usually slow down the audio to either half speed or 0.75 speed and shadow absolutely everything that the speaker says as I'm reviewing those notes, right? So first, pausing every few seconds the audio so that I can mimic as much as possible the rhythm, cadence, and pronunciation of the speaker for my story audio. And then I'll play the audio through maybe a second or third time, this time all the way through, but trying to speak at the exact same time that the speaker is also saying. Now, the shadowing method works really great for pronunciation. And it also gives your brain a little bit more of a rest, because when we do produce a language, actually producing the language is just half of the battle, right? Actually thinking about what we want to produce is the other half of it. When I am low energy, sometimes I just like to remove that part and turn it into a more passive activity instead of such big active recall, and just read along with whatever story audio or text I am using as more input. So then I'm still producing the language, but I don't have to think as hard about what I actually want to say. Now, another great thing that you can do to make a really immersive environment is to think of all the language learning tasks you do and turn them all more into a lifestyle. So what do you like doing already? You can essentially replace doing it with your target language instead of your native one. So as a complete beginner in Japanese, I probably wouldn't do this, but if I am more intermediate or advanced, like in Spanish or Turkish, then it's always fun to read the news, get more novels, play more video games, make sure my navigation app on my phone is also in my target language so that it'll speak to me with directions that I can practice using any sort of fitness app or fitness program online, or going to an actual class in person that is hosted in your target language. I've had a lot of success finding dance classes in Spanish in my personal area, but you can also access this through fitness apps on phones. If you really like to scroll on social media, you can always create new accounts that are only dedicated to your target language. The algorithm will understand that you only want content in that language, and it'll keep on feeding you new content as well. Music immersion is also a great one, and also really, really fun. When you do connect to the music of your target language's culture, that can also feel really fulfilling and can replace sometimes our playlist of either English or our native language if it's something other than English. Plus, you can also turn your voice assistant, if you use either Siri or Alexa, for example, into just talking to you in your target language as well. Now, if you are also slightly more advanced, I would actually advise to start thinking to yourself in your target language, and especially if you're alone, talking out loud in your target language so that you practice pronunciation and really warm up the muscles in your mouth to how the language feels. You can talk to pets, to baby cousins, to inanimate objects, your favorite stuffed animal, anything like that. So you at least have some sort of focus, but main thing is you are producing your language inside your immersion bubble, not only consuming it through input. Also, I love to write down any sort of to-do lists or grocery lists, shopping lists, or other tasks that I put in my calendar in my target language once I am past a little bit of B1. Now, if you are short on time during the day, what I also love to do is just dedicate a space to just immersion in the language and or just an activity that I really like to do, and totally dedicate it to doing it in the target language. So what this looks like is I will usually sit out on the patio and do my 1 to about 3 hours if I'm really limited on time that day, taking my class, doing my notes, and doing some input and pronunciation exercises as well. Maybe with some music in my target language in the background, and then after I finish, I can just leave all of the stuff and go about the rest of my day outside of immersion bubble. But that way I train my brain to associate that space with only that language. Now, here is what a sample full day immersion plan for me would look like using a more intermediate advanced language, Spanish. Starting at 9 a.m., you could do an input warm-up while cooking and eating breakfast. So that means consuming a Spanish podcast of your choice for about 30 minutes. You could then follow that up with a Spanish class on italki, talking about your Spanish topic from breakfast. Record all of your notes into a personal notebook or flashcards for later review, 20 minutes. Do a home workout. So I love doing the Spanish Pilates workout online for 45 minutes. Cool down and stretch with a Spanish playlist in the background on Spotify for 20 minutes. Listening to the news while resting and eating lunch. I usually love to get my news from DW Español for about an hour. Then, of course, nap for an hour, give your brain a break, then reading your favorite novel and taking notes in Spanish for an hour, going for a walk either with Spanish music or silence for about an hour, favorite TV show on Netflix in Spanish for 2 hours, give or take, and then dinner with Spanish music in the background or silence about 1 hour. And you'll notice that I have started to include more input activities that are laid back and not so based on active recall, right? We're really aiming for some passive review and listening and having more fun and enjoyment as we wind down for the day. And then free time after dinner or just passive engagement via input. So more TV or more reading your novel in your target language. Do another activity, hang out with your friends, any sort of non-language related activity after that is valid to do after such a full day of immersion. And lastly, I also want to emphasize that it is important to give yourself a break. Our brains do need rest to be able to process and solidify more our long-term memory of what we learn. So don't always pressure to fill every single minute with immersion, with a podcast in the background, with totally saying no to anything that is in your native language. Whatever allows you to operate at your maximum capacity is productive. Remember that. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video very soon.